Hi guys, welcome to Caterpillar Cross Stitch. Today we're going to be looking at ways to avoid those shadows forming in your cross stitching. We're going to be going into detail as to what causes a shadow and methods to use to try and avoid them. If you're new around here, then hi, my name is Sian. Welcome to Caterpillar Cross Stitch. Here on this channel, we upload how-to guides, tips and tricks, and we also share exciting upcoming stitch-alongs designed by Sally, the owner and designer of Caterpillar Cross Stitch. We would love for you to hit that red subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you get notified of when we next upload. So you might be wondering what we mean by shadows, so let's take a closer look. For today's example, we are going to be using the Hello Sunshine design, which is one of 4 of the seasonal trees. I love this design. It is really fun and colourful, and I am stitching this on a 28 count opalescent even weave, so there is lots of glitter in this fabric, which I love. I think it's going to work really well with all the fun colours that Sally has used for this design. So when we talk about shadows, shadows tend to be formed when we are moving around a design and there is fabric on show. It tends to happen in lighter fabrics and where we are using dark thread. So I'm going to be showing you 2 examples of ways you can avoid these shadows. So the first one is we're going to be looking at this leaf here. So you can see that I have completed this green section of the leaf and I now have the other colour to complete. However, I've got quite a lot of thread left over, so I'm going to move to this next motif, which is here on the right of this motif. So I'm going to push my needle back down and we're going to count 10 across, and we're going to place our first stitch, and we're going to take a look at what that's going to look like when moving our thread from this area directly to the new area. Okay, so I've now placed my first stitch. So this stitch here represents this first stitch in this motif. So I've moved my thread from this section to this section. So if we just spin this around, you can now see what we're dealing with on the back. So we've now moved our thread, and as you can see, the thread has moved from this section to this section. Now the problem with doing that is that this section of our design has quite a lot of fabric on show. So what that's going to cause, which you can see in the camera, is that there is a shadow that's formed, and this happens because we're using a nice white fabric, and this is quite a dark green when comparing it to the white fabric. And because there's lots of little holes in our fabric, it's really starting to show that thread moving in the back of our design. Now, because there is not going to be lots of cross stitches covering this in the back, you're going to be able to see this when we finally finish our piece, which really does become quite distracting from our cross stitching. So we want to try and avoid moving directly to an area where we're going to have fabric on show. So instead of moving my thread directly to this section here, I'm going to end my thread by running my thread under the existing stitches, and I'm going to start again in this section. We're going to take a look at how that's going to look. I've gone ahead and I have ended the thread, and I have started again using the loop method over here with this new motif. And you can really see a difference that has made. We no longer have that line running in the back of our fabric. So when we are needing to move from one section of a design to another section where there is fabric on show, it really is a good idea to end the thread and start again. So let's take a look at the other method. The next method is one of my favourite methods to use to try and avoid those shadows. Now I have finished this stem section here, but I've missed 3 squares. So I need to go and add those squares in. You can see that I have finished in the bottom of the stem, and I need to make my way up to the top. Okay, so I'm going to move my thread directly to the square that I need to add my stitch. So I'm just going to pull my thread through. As you can see, that has now created a line in a section that has no stitches. So my thread has been moved from the bottom here and has been moved all the way across to this section here, but it has now meant that the thread has moved into a space that isn't going to have any stitches. So instead of moving our thread directly from this position into where we need to stitch, I'm going to thread my thread through the back of these existing stitches until I reach the top of where I need to get to. And I'm going to run my needle through the back of these existing stitches, and that way it is going to avoid that shadow forming in the fabric. So I'm just going to pull my needle through, and then that will now line up into the area I need to put my stitch. So if we spin that back round and I put my needle back in to that square that we need to put our stitch into, you can see that that has really made a difference to the shadowing. There is no shadow in between this space now. It's left the fabric on show, and we've really made it nice and tidy in our cross stitching. So where we need to move in our cross stitching, and there is some stitches where we can run our thread, it's always a good idea to do that, to try and get to the location that you need to without causing those moving shadows in our cross stitching. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those 3 stitches, and then I'll show you the final result. I have gone ahead and I have completed this here, and I have also added this motif in here. Now, the 2 methods I used for these 2 was, we first of all had the thread moving across in this direction, and as you can now see, there is no thread moving along in this area, so there are no shadows, and we ended the thread and we started again in this area. So if we are moving to a new location, it's always good to end the thread and start again. We then moved on to the flower, and we moved our thread to the section that we needed to stitch, but it did leave that thread moving into fabric space. So, and as you can see, we moved our thread through the back of our existing stitches to get us in line with where we needed to stitch, and you can see that has left no shadows. That it's really nice and neat on the back, and if we look at the front, you can see that we have no shadows formed coming through the front of our fabric. So I really hope that it has helped you with your cross stitching. So there we have 2 methods to help you avoid those shadows forming in your cross stitching. If you have enjoyed this video and have found it useful, then please do give this video a like so that we know to create more content like this. Today is actually my last day here at Caterpillar Cross Stitch, as I'm looking to spend more time with my family and friends. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who have given me such a warm welcome since joining Caterpillar Cross Stitch. It has been an absolute pleasure creating content for you to enjoy. Now, there is going to be plenty of content still coming your way, so make sure to stay tuned for those videos being uploaded. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you all very soon.